with all the reboots and the remakes and bringing all the old properties from TV and movies and video games and things like that back to the forefront, it's become so prevalent that we've decided, why don't we compare then to now? So each episode, we're going to take one property or one theme and we're going to compare how they did it back in the day to how they're doing it now.
And we're talking about as far as the first time they did it.
Exactly.
To the recent time.
Exactly.
So if you have something in between that may have been better than what came before and what came after, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to leave those out.
But we will touch on it if we feel like it's too good to pass up. For our first episode, there's this little indie movie coming out. Something about a Batman going up against a man that's super. And we decided...
It's supposed to be some kind of... Justice is coming. It's like
the dawning of it.
The midnighting of it. The dusk of it.
Like after dark, and then when the sun comes up, it dawns.
Brunch of justice.
I guess so. But anyway, we decided we're going to look into this Batman character and this Superman character, and we're going to look at the first time they met up and fought versus the more recent times they met up and fought. So
are they not friends?
Maybe they're acquaintances. They might be
lovers.
I don't know. Let's see how they square up in these two adaptations. So first up, we've got the Bruce Timm animated Batman, Superman, World's Finest.
It's a little arrogant of them. I mean, what if Spider-Man's the world's finest?
Well, he's not in this. So the premise of World's Finest is this. Batman and Superman meet for the first time when the Joker decides, Gotham's, I'm low on money. Gotham is a little shaky over here because Batman keep beating me up all the time. So I'm going to Metropolis and I'm going to strike a deal with Lex Luthor to pay me $1 billion and I'll kill Superman. This prompts Batman to go after Joker and go to Metropolis to meet up with Superman. At first, things are shaky, as you can see in the initial fight scenes. And I must admit, it was awesome.
Bruce Timm bust out the best animators he could get on this entire movie that they did. Because any other time on the show, on both Batman and Superman, like they're phoning it in, they get like the shit animators that they use like every episode, and then, they only bust these guys out when they want to show off or whatever. I guess they're getting that daytime in me or whatnot.
This movie, which is actually just 3 episodes of Superman the Animated Series put together, was done back in the mid-90s, like around 1996.
And at that time, Superman had just gotten his own animated series, and the Batman animated series had ended, but then when the Superman animated series was off and running, they were like, let's bring it back. So they brought it back, updated the animation and the character designs and whatnot, and they decided, with this 3-part episode, let's officially cross these two over and do an extended universe.
So the characters involved, Batman and Superman, we'll get on them first. Batman, this is the brooding Dark Knight portrayed perfectly by Kevin Conroy. I mean, what can you say? If you've seen any interpretation of Batman where Kevin Conroy does the voice, he always turns in an A+ performance.
It's almost as if he didn't really... It's kind of unfair, actually, because Kevin Conroy didn't really have to do much when it came to his performance. I feel like Tim Daly, who is the voice of Superman, had to do more because he had to react to this new element that has come upon in his life at this current moment. Like, he thought he was top dog because, he could fly around and just beat anybody's ass because he's Superman. And then this guy comes in and not only more or less emasculates him while he's in his Superman persona, but then when he becomes Bruce Wayne and sweeps in and takes Lois away from him, like, you can see some hate vibes from Superman every time he walked into the door.
Exactly. They really played well with the you're on my turf and I don't really like you, but we got two common enemies, so I'm gonna tolerate you until we can get this job done. And maybe we'll learn to mutually respect each other along the way. And the rest of the cast does a pretty good job. Dana Delaney as Lois Lane, she always turns in a great performance. I like this version of Lois Lane. To me, all the characters from this era of DC Comics animation are definitive to me. So I really dug what they did with Lois Lane and how she's portrayed in this movie and throughout the series as well.
And she will never look as attractive as she does in this animated series ever after this show, because the other Lois Lanes that we've gotten over the years, whenever a Superman property came out, with one exception, I can't remember her name. She was in Smallville.
Erica Torrance.
Yeah.
That was a good Lois Lane.
Yeah, a very good one. But all the other ones,
I think mostly because I think she was playing a little too much from the cartoon.
Yeah.
From this cartoon version. Until they got silly and they wanted to do shit like Lois becomes a witch, Lois becomes a vampire, Lois gets superpowers.
We'll save Smallville for our next episode.
So we also have Joker and Lex Luthor, the two greatest villains from Batman and Superman respectively. Mark Hamill puts in an excellent job as Joker. He's perfect. He is the definitive Joker once again.
I will not be remiss to, we got to throw Clancy Brown in there as like literally Clancy Brown to me is the white equivalent to Keith David.
As in voice acting?
Yeah,
yes.
As in voice acting.
He is. Lex Luthor, this is, okay, like we said before, we're doing this episode because of Batman, Superman, Dawn of Justice. Seeing this Lex Luthor and then knowing what we're getting in Dawn of Justice almost brings a tear to my eye because Jesse Eisenberg will never compare to Clancy Brown and his Lex Luthor performance.
He ruins the movie. I mean,
Jared Leto's Joker in Suicide Squad might not compare to Mark Hamill, but at least he is trying. At least he is putting in a decent effort. If you're one of these people that haven't watched this movie, be warned, it's 1996. So it's going to look dated. But for the time, the animation was excellent.
I'd say it still holds up.
You think it still holds up to this day?
I think it still
I guess you're right. I guess it would still hold up, but it doesn't. But like when you put it up against like something that's made digitally now, or even like computer animated stuff,
it has a little that old school tint, but it's still like the movements are fluid. Like the action is on, it's on point. It still holds up to me. You guys gotta get over that fucking thing where you can't watch old shit.
So overall, we thought Batman, Superman, World's Finest was a pretty good movie. And even right now in the year 2016, you can watch it.
Timeless.
Yes, it really is timeless. And for us, who was growing up back then, it pretty much set the definitive versions of those characters even to this day. And to prove our point, we're going to move on to the now section. So even though this was a while back, it still holds up.
In 2009.
Yeah, 2009 was a while back.
So now, relatively speaking, compared to, what we are.
Yeah, not like yesterday. So, back in 2009, DC Comics did a direct-to-video DVD called Superman Batman Public Enemies, based off the comic book by Ed McGuinness and Jeff Loeb. So in this movie, Batman and Superman team up after Lex Luthor puts a bounty out on Superman after Lex Luthor becomes the president. Yes, people, Lex Luthor becomes the president of the United States.
That's a spoiler alert if you hadn't read the book.
What proceeds is almost an hour of Superman and Batman whooping every villain in the DC universe's asses to get to Lex Luthor. Oh, and did we mention that a kryptonite comet is on its way to Earth? Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Now, you saw that he mentioned that it was an hour-long ass whooping. That wasn't a complaint
No,
by any means.
no, you're gonna love this. That's not a complaint at all. That is pure glorified glee. To kick back on what I mentioned earlier, all of the characterizations of Batman, Superman, Lex Luthor from the 90s World's Finest cartoon were carried over to this 2009 movie, and they still hold up to this day.
Even more so, to cement these characterizations, they brought back the voice actors of Batman and Superman and Lex Luthor, and they are did not skip a beat.
Yes, almost 15 years later, they picked up right where they left off. It was like it's almost, if it wasn't for the different animation styles and the different premise of the story, and knowing that this movie doesn't connect to that other movie, it's almost like part 2 of the first movie we discussed before. They're old buddies. They don't fight with each other, but, they still have that little bit of contention. Batman always has those snide remarks, and Superman's like, yeah, whatever, but I know you forget, I know you as well as you know me.
I think it was pretty ballsy that the movie just starts off with everything established. It hits the ground running. They don't have to do any kind of setup or anything.
Right.
Batman or Superman are friends. They've known each other for years. Like, Superman is at Batman's house, because it's a Tuesday or something
Exactly.
like that. Lex Luthor, him being president, is just another day in the life of him being a douchebag.
Another step up to his ultimate goal of killing Superman.
I would be remiss if I did not mention Amanda Waller, voiced by CCH Pounder, who I think gets overlooked in all of these voice actor who's when it comes to the DC characters.
She's another one that, definitive for that character, does a perfect characterization, just perfect.
Confession time.
Okay.
I know that they wanted to be faithful to the book that it was from, so they kept the Ed McGuinness art style.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like Ed McGuinness' art style, and I think it ruins the movie for me.
What did you say?
I don't like Ed McGuinness' art style.
Blasphemy. Okay. It's not the best, but I thought it was a faithful adaptation of Ed McGuinness' art style from the book.
Okay, here's the problem with that. It slows down the action for me, and when you compare that to World's Finest, where the action is kinetic and quick and stuff like that, like, everybody, especially like Major Force and Captain Atom, like, they look like they can't even turn to wipe their ass because they have all of these trapezius muscles and shit like that.
Yeah.
And
Ed McGuinness' art, he does draw, like, everybody looks like they have bubbles on them. Everybody is over buff.
Nice Power Girl, though. I'm not gonna, deny him the wonderfulness that is Power Girl and how she looks, but everybody else is like, no.
Yeah.
Stop.
But I still like the color palette. I still like, of course, the performances were A1. I think the only thing that I would have done differently is I would have switched Captain Atom and Major Force's voices. I think those voice actors should have switched roles. But beyond that, I still thought that it was a good cast. It was an excellent cast if you count the core characters. And then those side characters like Power Girl, she's voiced by Chloe from Smallville. Good choice. That's how I thought Power Girl should sound, I guess. Well, how should Power Girl sound? I mean,
like an adult.
She
to be
did
honest,
sound like an adult. Isn't Chloe like 35, 40 years old?
She found it. No. Like, and maybe, I can't think of the voice that should be for Power Girl, but it should sound a little rougher, to be honest with you. And
but
I guess that voice fits her since throughout the entire movie, Power Girl acted like she couldn't make a decision without consulting Luthor, or every time she would come to Luthor with something, he would use these basic mind games to try to justify why he's trying to beat the shit out of Superman, and it be legal.
Fair enough. This movie's pretty good. It lives up to the long lineage of DC animation up until this point. I think it did its job. It's a perfect example of Batman and Superman coexisting together in their universes.
It will more or less carry on the tradition of good DC animated movies up until Justice League
War. Justice League War was garbage.
Yeah.
But that's
it all goes down here.
That's a video for another day.